Right, well, we're all done, and what a total nightmare that was. I reflowed it in the oven, and let it cool down, and could I get that stencil off? What a total... Oh, it's just awful. You can see how it's all bent and creased. I sprayed it loads with deflux, flux cleaner, tried to lift up all around the edges and the corners first, but it just would not release. And of course my fear was that if I put too much force on that, it would, perhaps rip a pad off. All the balls seemed fine. I didn't have any issues particularly with that. The only thing I can think of is this BGA flux that I use. It's an IF 8300. I can't even remember who makes it. It's Interflux. It's one of the Interflux electronics fluxes. It just may be that with it all in that area around there and around the edges, because this stencil is not the right thing. Not that it would have made any difference actually. In fact, thinking about it, the only place it was stuck was between the balls. It would not have been stuck any more in that area there, because that was filled with balls that weren't being used. So it just seems that it was caught on the edges of each one of the balls. After a couple of minutes, I carefully sort of almost peeled it up like a sardine tin. It's completely trashed the stencil, I suspect. I'm not sure that's going to focus. I've tried straightening it out. I probably could position balls with it again, but I just do not like this direct heat method of doing things. Whether it's the flux I was using, these were 0.65mm balls, which is what the stencil's for. Where are we? There. So I'm not really sure what the problem is. I've always found that these direct heat stencils are a sod to get off. I would much rather I'd bought the 90mm stencils, because then you just lift the stencil off before you reflow the balls. But it's off. It's all done. That's going to go back in the post to Zen tomorrow. I don't think we're going to get a more closer up shot than that. Hopefully that will go back on okay for Zen, and will actually work. That would be a result. I'm not sure I really fancy doing this long term, as a living, because it's just taken hours. I guess you get better as you go along and buy better equipment. I do not like the direct heat stencils, as I've said. Maybe somebody can suggest what the issue is there. Again, because the stencil is kind of a sort of universal one, I call them, but we do not have the right stencil for any of these BGAs that come off of the tellies, it seems. Well, I think that's been the case so far. Just have not got anything that fits, and every time I've had to do it with one of these instead, which isn't ideal. Yeah, I don't know. I quite like Insat International's idea. They use the little jig, the 90mm stencils, and you actually pop down a coating of solder paste through the stencil first, lift that away, and you put a spacer in, and that just, after you've cleaned the stencil, that pops back on just slightly clear of the solder paste that's been applied to each pad. You then pour the balls on and lift the stencil straight off, and then reflow it. So there's a nice little bit of solder paste on each pad before the ball is placed in place. And of course that holds the ball in perfectly. It can't move anywhere. And at reflow they just form one ball. I really like that idea over this direct heat stencil. But yeah, appreciate any thoughts on why this stencil or these stencils are so tough to remove, and any other suggestions on removing it. Maybe after it's all cooled down I should just warm up the stencil a little bit with the hairdryer, maybe that would just free it up a little bit, make it expand slightly. Yeah, I don't know. Any thoughts? Then let me know on the forum or on YouTube.